Hi everyone, and thank you for attending today's webinar on Speed Up Self-Assessment. So I'm going to start by introducing myself. So I'm your host today. My name is Will, and I'm one of the product specialists at AutoEntry. If you've got any questions during today's webinar, feel free to get these added into the chat. We will try and answer as we go through, but we do also have some allotted time at the end. So today's webinar is around about 30 minutes, and we do have a lot to cover. So I'm going to kick us off by starting a little bit about our content today. So today we're going to talk about some tips and tricks around self-assessment. We'll introduce Making Tax Digital for income tax. We'll cover using automation for data entry, and then our brand new tool, AccountsPrep. You will get a handout from today's session, so feel free to download the handout, something you can refer back to later if needed. Firstly, some tips and tricks around self-assessment, making it go smoothly. So firstly, remember you set the deadlines. We all know getting paperwork from clients can be tough. So make sure that you work to your calendar and not HMRC's, giving them deadlines for that paperwork and when it's due by. Creating incentives for clients is a great one, giving them a reason to get that paperwork into you. Example of this could be, what if we work out your tax liability early? You'll have time to sort out any underpayments. It's got to be simple. So the use of online portals for uploading documents or even secure messaging apps like Telegram could be used. And that communication is key. Emails are great, they're free, but why not use a client's mobile number instead for communications? Things like WhatsApp even, be where they are. And lastly, social media, use that to your advantage. Social media can be a really powerful tool to get your message out there. Add your client on social media, post about self-assessment, giving them reminders when they're scrolling through their feeds that they need to then supply those documents. With Making Tax Digital for income tax coming in soon, I just want to cover a few key points. And that first one is self-assessment isn't going to go anywhere. So your current HMRC processes will still be required for clients under 30,000. The Making Tax Digital brief is from April 2026. There'll be legal requirements for clients over 50,000. From April 2027, it's going to be clients over 30,000. These clients, you'll need to keep digital records. So that'll be records of transactions like invoices, receipts, digital accounting. Statements must be submitted, so these will be done at least quarterly. Then a final declaration prepared and any payment due by the 31st of January. The key to getting prepared for all these changes is to start early. Sage and AutoEntry will have loads of webinars about Making Tax Digital, so watch this space. Now, let's take a little look into data automation and how AutoEntry can fit in. Many accountants and bookkeepers call it the low-hanging fruit of automation because they can't live without it. It takes care of basic tasks like data entry. AutoEntry's focus is to help you get data from receipts, bills, invoices, and statements without having to do it all manually by hand. It integrates seamlessly with all top accounting software to form one of the first and most valuable steps in your app stack. In fact, using AutoEntry reduces data processing by up to 90%, while increasing the accuracy by up to 99%. So a little bit now about working from left to right on this slide. Let's have a little look at how AutoEntry works when you're connecting to accounting software or even just exporting that data to Excel. So that first step is those documents will be received. These could be printed receipts, could be statements, could be invoices, it could be in digital formats like PDFs. Second step is where AutoEntry comes in. You transfer that data into AutoEntry. So you could scan that paperwork in using a desktop scanner. You could email those documents directly to AutoEntry, or there's a really easy to use mobile app, which you can take quick snapshots. Step 3 is where AutoEntry then does its thing. It extracts the data, and that'll be key information like dates, values, references, and more. And then depending on that data that is extracted, you can then review and categorize the data. AutoEntry, it's going to learn your categorizations at this point. So the next time you come to do it, it's going to automatically suggest what to use, which will just make things even faster. And you can even create rules, and that'll then entirely automate that step for the future, obviously once you're confident in your categorizations. And then step 4 is where you then publish that data into your accounting software, or even export it to Excel, and that's it, job done. Our new tool, AccountsPrep, how does that fit in to your workflow when using AutoEntry and what we've just covered? The workflow is very, very similar, only difference being that very last step about publishing the data. So still documents will be received. This will generally be bank statements from clients. It could be things like cash expenses. These documents are then uploaded into AutoEntry. Step 3, AutoEntry does its thing again, extracts that information. And then that final step is where AccountsPrep comes in. So that final step, for any clients without accounting software, you can then connect AccountsPrep, and then off the back of that information, you can then start turning that information or data into a trial balance. For those clients using accounting software, then the steps and processing is going to look something like this. So you've got step 1, clients provides receipts and invoices for the tax year. This could be, again, paper or digital formats. Step 2, AutoEntry then accurately and quickly extracts the data. And then step 3, you integrate your client's accounting software to AutoEntry. Then in the accounting software, you reconcile, you adjust, and then finally, you're going to use that data to prepare the self-assessment return. Introducing AutoEntry into this workflow, people say it can save up to 80% of time compared to manually entering all that paperwork by hand. For those clients not using an accounting software and instead using AccountsPrep, clients will generally give you probably 12-month worth of bank statements. They may also be supplying you with those cash expenses as well by receipts. Again, paperwork, could be digital formats. AutoEntry, again, it's going to then extract the information from a bank statement. And then that final step, you integrate AccountsPrep to your client in AutoEntry. And then using AccountsPrep, you categorize, you reconcile, you adjust, and then you can export that information and use that in your chosen final accounts or tax solution. So no more Excel required. It prepares you and your client for making tax digital by digitalizing their accounts too. And one of the users of AccountsPrep have said, with using AccountsPrep and for the self-assessment period, it's managed to really cut down a full working day per client into just 60 and 90 minutes. So at this point, I just want to cover a little bit around AccountsPrep. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a demonstration around adding a company into AutoEntry, how you can integrate AccountsPrep to this company, how you can then pull the information over and automate the process, how you can then work on the data, and then finally extracting reports and then exporting that information to then use into my chosen tax solution. So if I load up my software, so this is my AutoEntry account. So for those who don't already use AutoEntry, so this is my client list. So I've got a list of all my clients on the left, along with any integration statuses, as well as having an area for each of the different documents that have been uploaded. So the first steps, if your client isn't listed already in AutoEntry, we can then just add a brand new client. To add a client, it's the add company in the top right, and then we can give this particular client a name. So for today, I'm going to call my client Marco Services. We can define countries and even currencies if needed. Once we're happy with our settings and company name, we can create a company and then view that company within AutoEntry. Within AutoEntry, it does give you a number of different areas depending on the documents that are getting uploaded. So we've got a purchase area, supplier statements, sales, bank statement, and expense area. For today, I'm going to focus around bank statements, getting bank statements uploaded and getting these extracted. So to get that information uploaded in AutoEntry, we can use the upload button or upload document button, top right. We can then select the particular folder that we're going to upload it into. So in this case, bank statements. And then it's going to allow us to either browse the files, or we can just drag the files straight into this window. So it's looking for scanner settings of things like grayscales or even color can be used, or it's looking for ePDFs, which are 10 times faster to get extracted. Once we've uploaded a bank statement, that'll then appear in the inbox, and that'll then all be extracted using AutoEntry. We can then go on to use that statement in AccountsPrep, which we're going to look at in a moment. If I'm going to be uploading, say, cash expenses or cash receipts, we can upload those in a few different ways. So if I was to select purchases, so uploading a cash expense, we can upload that via a browser, so very similar via the web browser like today. Those expenses could even be transferred over to an email address. So we can see the email address predefined at the bottom. We can edit that email address if needed. And we can also use a mobile app as well. So ideal for clients to be able to work in collaboration, where they could download a mobile app as a user and just take a quick snapshot of any, say, cash expense. Once we've got information uploaded, the next logical step would be potentially integrating AutoEntry to AccountsPrep. And to integrate AccountsPrep, we've got an integrate button on the left-hand side of my client. And within my list, we will see bookkeeping software. So Sage Accounting, Xero, it is an agnostic tool, so it doesn't just connect to obviously Sage products. For today, we are going to focus on AccountsPrep, which is the third one in the list. And clicking on the connect option will then allow us to go through some basic settings about financial years and templates. So the first thing that we'll see when we go to connect is really just confirming our year-end dates. So my year-end date at the moment is for January 23 to the end of December. Once we're happy with our dates, we can then choose from a range of different chart of accounts. So we do have pre-built chart of accounts in there for things like CCH, Iris, Digita, VT software, Sage 50, Sage Accounts Production as well. So we could choose one of the predefined charts. If we've got more of a customized chart of accounts, we can even create what's called organization templates. So organization templates is a template I can create around my chart of accounts, and then I could use these for clients going forward, which again makes the setup that bit easier. We've then got some additional settings around tax. So we can choose this particular client as being not tax registered, which is what we do in this example that we're going to talk about today. But you can also use AccountsPrep for tax registered businesses, where we can then create a report for any tax outputs. And then additionally, we do have some analysis tagging. So if we do need to categorize and tag our particular transactions in a certain way from a reporting point of view, we can enable what's called analysis tagging to give us that more in-depth reporting. So for today, I'm not going to focus on this brand new client that I'm just going through setting up. I'm just going to go back to my client list, and I'm going to use a client that I've created a little bit earlier, which has information there already. So if I click the AutoEntry button top left, it's going to bring us back to my company list. And if I scroll down my list, I've got one of my clients that's already listed called Will's Flower Shop. And on the right-hand side, I can see I've already uploaded some purchases, I've uploaded some cash sales, I've uploaded a couple of bank statements as well, and I've already got this integrated to AccountsPrep. So clicking on the AccountsPrep option, it then loads up the AccountsPrep software. So what you'll notice straight away is we do load up straight away into a snapshot area. In the snapshot, we can see information around previously categorized transactions for my income statement and my balance sheet. We can then see comparisons of last year to this year and any sort of percentage changes. And all that information we can also export using the option in the top right. So AccountsPrep, it allows you to pull information from bank statements, from cash sales, cash expenses, from AutoEntry. And then I can prepare my trial balance really quickly, really easily by categorizing transactions in bulk. You've got things like auto matching, which all about increasing that efficiency and saving time. And then off the back of that information, being able to pull off reports and extract data so I can then use that in my chosen final account solution. Before we start looking at pulling down data, so I'm just going to point out a few different areas around the settings. So I did mention my chart of accounts when I've set up my company. So if I did want to add in or change any sort of coding or any names, I can do that under the accounting tab and in the chart of accounts. We do have a range of different default settings as well, which is in the settings menu. And we can also set up some extra analysis tags as well. So we can then again run reports in that little bit more detail if needed. And all my bank accounts, they're already created, but they're under the bank section and in bank accounts. So in that bank account section, if I did want to again change a name or add a brand new account, I can do that in that section as well. So like I say, the purpose of AccountsPrep is to be able to take that bank statement and then categorize it. So to get that information in off the bank statement, we can do that via the add statement data in the top left. And in this section, we can then choose which account it's going to be associated with. So in my case, I've got a current account, I've got a deposit account, and I've got a credit card. So for today, I'm going to use my current account. And then getting that information in, I've got three different options. So I can either use AutoEntry, which means I can upload a bank statement, which I've already done in AutoEntry. AutoEntry extracts that information, and then I can just click a button effectively to pull that down. I can also even import that data using Excel or CSV instead. So if I had that already prepared in an Excel format, I could import that in. Or if it's only a very small amount of data, I could even enter that on screen if needed. Today, I'm going to use the AutoEntry option as my example. So to pull that information that's already been extracted, I can choose AutoEntry statement capture. And at this point, I can confirm the bank account's correct, and then I can choose which file. So I do have a number of different statements I've uploaded. So I've got a choice of 4 different ones. Today, I'm going to use that very top one. And then I can confirm what date range of transactions am I going to pull down. Once I'm happy with those settings and I continue, it's then going to load us into a window which will show unposted items. So the tab that I'm in now, unposted, is a list of all the transactions that are on the statement that AutoEntry is extracted. And at this point, it's going to flag up things like duplicate transactions. So in this particular account, if I just reorder it by the account column, I can see I've got 5 transactions that have been flagged as duplicates. So these are items that I've already done and already posted and categorized, which I don't need to include on this statement. So to get rid of them, I can select my items on the left-hand side, or I can hold down my control key and select all the ones in between. And in this example, I don't want to recategorize, so I'm just going to use the delete button and delete all 5 of these in a few clicks. With these transactions that are left in my statement, I'm then going to reference and then categorize my transactions. So the first one that we see here, so 3 mobile, if I just wanted to categorize one transaction, I can select my one item. I could fill in my reference, but I'm just going to leave that blank for today. And then in the category or the account column, it's then going to give me a list of all my category accounts. So in this example, I can search for phone and I can see my category account for telephone and internet. I can select my account and then I can just post that individually if needed. Where this comes in as a big time saver is being able to order my list and use search columns to be able to categorize. So in this window, I could order that via details. And once it's ordered by details, I can then see all my bank fees that are all listed in one list. So at this point, I can highlight multiple items. So again, use my control key. I can add in a reference. I can then go along to the account, double click onto the account and add in my category account for my bank fee, which you can see is highlighted 16 transactions in a few clicks. And then I can get all 16 posted. Other options that I've got is to be able to use the search box at the top. So if I'm looking for my transactions from Google, for example, I could search for Google. I can see all my Google items. I can then select all my items and again, select my account, select my subscriptions and post those 6 items. So categorizing, really quickly, really effectively and efficiently during the search boxes or filtering different columns. Other options that I get off the back of transactions is to be able to work with transfers. So what I've done already is I've been through my credit card statement and I've got some transactions that I've already done, which has been paying off my credit card. So in my bank statement, my current account, which I've paid the credit card off from, what I can do very quickly is search for credit card. So I can see some transfers that are already there. And off the back of these items, I can highlight them and then I can see a transfer button. As part of using that transfer option, I can select which account it was being transferred to. So it's my credit card, and you'll notice that it auto matches those transactions. Again, efficiently seeing I've already done these in the credit card, which I can then match it all off to automatically. If you do have clients that are still using checks, so I know checks are maybe a lot less rare nowadays, what you can do also within AccountsPrep is you do have an area under banks where you can add in checks manually or you can import them in from Excel. What that'll then do is when I'm going through categorizing my bank statement, I can search for any check items, which I've just done. We can see a range of different checks. And once I've selected my checks, I can use an option top right, which will then auto match any that are then linking to my check statement. So any unpresented checks that haven't hit the bank account yet, they would be identified really quickly and easily from that check functionality. And last thing I'm going to mention, or last 2 things I'm going to mention in this window are more about processing. So in this sort of example where you're categorizing transactions, you might have maybe a junior staff member doing that categorizations, and then checking the information that's being categorized might be one of the more senior accountants. What you can do as part of categorizations is you can use a flag icon, and that flag icon will then appear from the report section, where if that junior staff was maybe a little bit unsure on a categorization, that can then be flagged up as part of the reporting, and then any sort of mistakes can be identified very easily and chopped and changed. And lastly, if you've got transactions that are split over multiple categories, you can use the split option on the right-hand side. And this split option would allow me to then select multiple different accounts, split out my values. Let's keep it easy for me. So if I just use £17 under 2,000 as my purchases, I'm adding a little bit on my direct expenses, very randomly 11 pence, but it allows me to again quickly add multiple lines and get that all split out correctly. Once I'm happy with all my categorizations and everything's been posted, they all then appear into the posted tab at the top, and these then appear in batches that I've done. So these are all the items that I've just done, to be honest, very quickly now. We can then see batch numbers. So if I did need to edit, change, or even delete batches, I can do that via this window, or we can do that via the report section as well, which I'll talk about in a moment. Other options that you get from a categorization point of view is being able to categorize any cash sales or any cash expenses. What you can do in these windows is you can upload purchase invoices. So thinking about those clients who are kind of your typical shoebox client, a bag or receipt client, you could upload all those expenses and AutoEntry will extract that information, and then I can categorize it via the cash expense area, import them in, categorize it, and get that affecting my trial balance the way I want. And then any sort of journals, so any sort of off-statement data that you need to do, so any corrections, depreciation journals, anything like that can be done via quick journals, add-in journals, or double entry journals, and even imported in as well. Once you've done all the entries, for me to extract the information, I've got a range of different reports. So I've got reporting around my P&L, balance sheet. First one I'm going to talk about is account details. So the account details report is effectively my nominal account breakdown, where I can see a list of all the transactions and the double entries that it's hitting. In this report, it's going to allow me to filter this down. So I can filter via code. I can look at transactions that have been flagged. So I mentioned about junior staff flagging transactions if they're unsure. I could use this report, which will identify anything that's been flagged, anything that has been flagged or anything that needs to be amended. I can use my pencil symbol on the right to then edit the categories account to get that right. This report can also be exported to Excel, which is exactly the same in all the other reports as well. Second report I'm going to focus on is my profit and loss. So again, reports in profit and loss. I can see a breakdown about my direct expenses, my direct costs, and my expenses. If I wanted to see a comparative, I can also change my period. I can then preview that report, which will show me a cross-reference to 2022 compared to 2023, again, which can be exported. And then the probably most important window, or one of the most important windows, is getting this data out. So we do have an option under the report section, export data, to be able to export the information in a given format, which would then match your tax software. So in the format choices, we do get Sage 50, SAP Accounts Production, CCH, Iris, Digita. If my software is not listed, I do also get the option for a generic format. So I can choose a generic format. I can pick and choose what I would like to see on the export. I can then export that information. And then with that export, I can go into my chosen accounts production and tax software, and I can then import that information to continue